Hey, I'm Elliot and he's John.
Hi, I'm John and he's Elliot, and today we're joined by Nick Packer, who founded and runs the young adults group at our church, Holy Trinity. He works in graphic design and he in fact designed the very logo we are using on this podcast.
Yeah, we will be discussing the challenges of becoming an adult, the difference between going to uni and not going to uni, and the absolute importance of community.
You're listening to the Still More Show.
Are you recording?
Yeah, I've been recording for ages.
Why? What do you think you're going to capture?
Well, because you don't know when you're going to start.
You what?
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 I said blackmail.
Oh. Oh, that's a great tone to start with. Should we get into this bad boy?
Yeah, let's get into the
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Right, so we're joined by Nicholas Packer. Nick, is your name actually short for Nicholas?
It is.
Oh, wow. I didn't think it would be. That kind of makes it less fun. I think if it wasn't your real name, it'd
What
be more
else
fun.
would it be like short for?
Nictoria?
Oh gosh.
I don't know. It might just not be short for. It might just be Nick. Like, my name's not short for anything. It's just Elliot.
Yeah, but it also can't be short for anything.
What do you mean?
What? Because Nick is like has an obvious longer version. Elliot does not.
Elliot is the long version.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, your name is John, which is short for Jonathan, Jon.
Yeah.
But if you have John, that's not short for Jonathan. That's just John.
Yeah.
So you could have a name that's like not like Nick might. Right. I feel like we're on a tangent here. Not actually. Can it even be a tangent if you weren't on a path to start with?
That's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know. Oh man. So we're joined with Nick for short. Nick, hello.
Hi.
So let's get to know you a little bit. What do you do for a living, Nick? And how old are you?
I am 25.
That was such a weird It's like I'm 25.
It's just a good age. It's just I don't know. Carry on. What do you do for a living?
It is a good age. I think if I've not peaked by now, I think 25 is my peak. What do I do for a living? I do all sorts, to be honest. I know, like, an umbrella would be I am a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, that is just freelancing, so I have my own clients and work on my own projects. For a while, that was in a studio at an agency. I sometimes dabble in teaching graphic design, and then kind of lots of things that are kind of like adjacent to graphic design. So just my own kind of creativity and my own projects, and I try to do different things with different people, some nice collaborations. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Well, you actually designed the logo to this podcast as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Quite exciting. And I wanted to ask you, on a scale of, kind of like all like the range of different tasks that you do, how difficult was the task of doing our logo? Was it a really easy job?
It was relatively straightforward, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
But then also it could have been hard, like, if I didn't have a specific, like, if I didn't have an idea, then I'd be stuck on it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I can work on a really complex project, but I've got a good idea and I can just, like, that's do it.
Yeah, totally. I love the idea. I think it's great.
Elliot has ruined it completely on this plan that we've got. He's made a logo with just really horrific pictures of our face for the opinion of the week section, and it's cropped so like you're missing some of it, and I don't know.
It's only for me and John to see, just on the the Word document plan that we have for the episodes. I just wanted like a logo that just represents like opinion of the week, and I can just like put it wherever it needs to go in the plan.
Yeah.
And so I edited using Snapchat.
Amazing. I love that. So part of being a graphic designer is just knowing and accepting and dealing with the fact that people are going to misappropriate your work.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've seen actually, but we have played around with the logo that you've done for us and put it in some different colours to give
say
it some
we.
different feels. All right,
Come
you
on.
have. Go on then. You can explain it a bit.
Yeah, so I looked at like the colours that you used, and I don't know why it stood out, but for me it was like it's kind of 70s colours, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what went through my head. So I started researching a bunch of colour palettes and made a whole range of like different colours and styles. So
Nice.
So we're thinking of using.
people will get to see them, but
Yeah.
We're thinking of using them for kind of like each series do a different version of it and whatever. But
Yeah.
the initial logo that you've designed for us is just going to stick with us forever now, pretty much. Like we like it that much; it's just going to always be there.
yeah.
Oh, I'm glad.
But anyway, onwards, John.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. It's a similar of like how on a scale of like how difficult it was, but it's like what kind of things go into the process of coming out with a design. So like, what's the process from like when you get asked to do something to completely finished?
So it probably looks different for the individual, but I'm quite I'd say quite a perfectionist in some ways. So I'm always scared to put like the end result out into the world, which often means that I'll actually be too scared to start the project. So the first stage is just worry and put it off. But then once I'm past that, then I'll get started. And sometimes if the project requires it, I'll look for a specific point of inspiration. But more often than not, I spend so much of my time looking at things in the context of graphic design, and I spend so much time like reading about it or listening to different things or just listening to like kind of taking in art generally, so like music, books, film, anything. So quite often if I'm on a project, I'll have things in my mind already that I know can serve as inspiration for me.
Yeah.
And then something I'm really learning is like no idea is a bad idea. Like just get anything out that you can, like put it down on paper, get it out on your computer, and then I'll start pulling things together to kind of create something a bit more polished and final. And then this is the stage that I really like to invest in. It's the development of then what you've got. Like I'll kind of iterate and like I'll copy and paste it and then change a couple of things, and I'll copy and paste it and take a couple of things away, and I'll keep doing that over and over until I've either gone too far and I have to go back again, or it's just to the point where I'm like, it just suddenly feels like, oh, this is a really good place to stop now.
It sounds not too dissimilar from songwriting.
No, not at all. And actually, something I've kind of come to realise is that most creativity, like that process can translate across like whole different things. So I actually studied at an arts university. So everyone that I was at university with were illustrators, photographers, filmmakers, games designers, graphic designers, fashion designers. And although the tools that people are using are the same, actually that process of where's my inspiration coming from and then developing an idea, that's the same for everyone. And like you say, it's probably really similar for you guys with songwriting as well.
Yeah, the whole process that you just spoke through sounds really similar, even to the point of like at the end, it's quite daunting actually putting it out, like even when it's done. So you kind of, even at the beginning, you're kind of putting off big starting because you don't want to get to that point. It's all it's a similar process. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we want to move on to talk about your experience with university in a minute. But before we do, we had a couple of very deep, serious questions to ask you first. The first of which is, what does your average 3:25 p.m. look like?
3:25?
Yeah, p.m.
So, in lockdown, actually, not one of my days has been the same as another day. But actually, my 3:25 has been relatively consistent in that between 3 or 4-ish just as you're kind of like, there's that lull in the afternoon and I need a bit of a breakthrough on a project, or I need to like wake myself up for the rest of the day, I've been going out for a big walk every day, and that quite often falls at 3:00. So usually I'll be in the middle of Ayleston Meadows somewhere taking some photos.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
I've seen those. Those are really nice.
Yeah, that was a good answer. Yeah, no, I like that.
It's, I mean, because normally we're expecting like
blown
people
away.
are just completely out of the loop and they don't have plans for the day, but that's like landed at like the best possible point of the evening.
Yeah.
No, it's actually been a really good time. Like I said, so a lot of my housemates when I was at uni were photographers that I was at uni with, and I really learned a lot from them about, like, for them, like with their art, it's about how they view the world and process the world. And obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic and in a lockdown, and I had a lot of thoughts and feelings, and so going out and kind of taking in the world around me through photography has really helped me to kind of stay grounded through lockdown.
Yeah, I get that, definitely. I haven't actually had the time, but there's definitely been times where I'm like, I wish I could just go out and walk around with my camera for a bit. Yeah. So I'll move on to the all important question of this podcast. Yes. The question that apparently most of our audience come here for, which we should probably start putting at the end so they listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, we should be more
they all stop listening to the episode after this.
So, Nick, do you have a favourite sandwich or toasty?
Well, this is a really hard question. I'm a huge fan of things between slices of bread. Toasties, sandwiches, burgers. I just love all of it. So much so that at one point in my life I had to give myself a 1 burger a week limit. Do you know what? I'm going to go for something really rogue. But whenever I think about sandwiches, which is a lot of the time, one thing I always think about is the Tesco meal deal chicken, bacon and stuffing sandwich.
Oh, yes.
Brilliant.
I absolutely love it. It's like pure, stodgy comfort food.
Yes.
Brilliant.
I totally get that. You know what? This has actually been you can hear me just giggling in the background of all of that. This has been my favourite toasty segment that we've done. but yeah, that is one of the best sandwiches. I really like shop bought sandwiches.
Yeah, and I shouldn't, because it's rubbish food, but I don't feel like I could ever recreate a chicken bacon and stuffing sandwich in the same way that Tesco do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Oh, so nice. They're so nice. John, what do you think of shop bought sandwiches? Better than homemade?
I don't know. I love I'll make like a fried toast sandwich sometimes and stuff like that. It's just like those the hot ones that you can't get in the shop.
Or like you get like a random idea and just throw something together in it.
Yeah,
it's like possibly the best thing I've ever made.
Yeah, you don't have that. It's like it's nice as a consistent, like, it's there. I know I can get it if I'm desperate, but I don't think the range there's not enough range for me there.
Oh,
gotta diversify it a bit.
Yeah. When I was living in Halls in Birmingham last year, we lived very near to a Tesco, like a little Tesco local, and at the end of the day they'd reduce their sandwiches to like 15 pence.
It's dangerous.
We'd go and buy we'd go and buy like 10 of them between us and just go and put them in a toasty maker and toast them.
That's super brilliant idea.
Yeah, it was a really good idea. That's an Elliot original for you there. That's why we are the toasty experts on this podcast. I feel like we should move this along now. Where do we go from here?
Well, you were speaking about uni, so
that was it. That was the one. Yeah,
we can go on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you went to uni, Nick.
Yep.
You mentioned it earlier. Which uni did you go to? What did you study? And how did you make the decision to go to uni?
Quite a weird story actually. I grew up, and I'd say probably until 6 to 9 months before uni, basically like the time that my applications were due, I thought I would have gone to university to do maths or physics.
Really?
Yeah, and I did, like, my A levels were maths and physics, and graphics was like the fun one.
Yeah.
I love it, and I still really enjoy those subjects, but I don't know what happened, but I just reached that point at the end of A levels where I thought, no, like, I really love this. This is what I want to do. So kind of re-change my mind on different things, and I kind of panicked a bit, kind of feeling like, well, I'm not prepared for that. But I actually realised that so much of not the content I was learning with maths and physics, but the way I learned to think with maths and physics was really good for graphic design, because it's often about solving problems, or like working out different things, or it's about like kind of being really efficient, or and the way that maths and physics taught me to think was a very like problem solving, logical way of thinking, which actually put me in really good stead at uni, because it meant that I kind of approached projects quite differently from my peers who had grown up doing art and were really creative their whole lives. It meant that like I could work with people really well because we both kind of complemented each other.
Yeah.
So I went to Norwich University of the Arts, which, again, I changed my mind a lot last minute. It wasn't my first choice at all. I actually, by the time the interviews came, I thought, I don't want to go to a small arts university because art students are weird. And I don't want to be there. I want to go to like a normal uni. And then all of my interviews for university were all like based on portfolio projects. And I went to Norwich, and they had like a little taster of the course, and I completely fell in love with the city. The uni was great. The studios we were working in were great. The kind of projects and industry like relations they had on that course were just fantastic. And I knew that was exactly where I wanted to be.
Wow. And we were talking to Matt Pidgeon a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that music students can be a bit cliquey and a bit weird.
Yeah.
Which I've totally seen myself. What are art students like typically? You say like they're a bit weird. What?
Well, I thought that, but actually, like, everyone was so normal. Like, everyone's just the same as everyone else. And yeah, there were cliques, and there were the very typical art students who did things we shouldn't be doing, and had like mad, like really weird, like arty parties and stuff.
That's like really odd.
So I just imagine a bunch of people throwing paint around a room or something like that. I don't know why.
but 90% of the people there were like down to earth, realistic, normal people who happened to enjoy the arts. And actually, because it was a much smaller uni, like you got to know everyone, even people that were to start with in these like cliques. By the end of third year, you pretty much knew the whole of your year group. So it was a really small uni. There's only about 3,000 students.
Oh wow!
So yeah, you just get to know everyone, and you spend all day working in the studio rather than in lectures. So you get to work with different people, you get to see different people, you get to just sit and work with different people. And there's a real like, I guess like a community feel to it actually.
Yeah, that sounds really, really good fun. I feel like you always get those people on whatever course you kind of really fit the stereotype. Like, I know studying English, like you've got some really typical, like, you know, stereotypical English students who are always carrying around a pile of old books, and you know, like,
and they wear like a beret, and
there are a couple of people on my course that I've seen in strange headwear, and there's some weird people, but you know, I was going to ask as well, what did it mean going to university for you? Was it just a way of was it about just getting that degree to help you get on to the next level, or was it you know, you really wanted to go to uni? Like what was it for you?
I'd say a bit of both of those, and then like so many other things as well. Definitely there was parts of me that just felt like I had to, or like I should. It was the next step for most people.
Yeah,
Most of my friends were going to go do it, so why wouldn't I? But then thinking past that, actually, I just decided on a complete future career change. And graphic design, it's a lot less about the qualification, and a lot more about your experience and the type of things you work on. And like I said, it was very studio based. So I had 3 years just working in a studio, with my tutors kind of like coming in and out and like chatting to different people. And we had like designers come in and chat to us. So it was really about understanding the industry more. And we rarely were taught like design skills. It was so much more about creativity generally, and like the process and ideas, and kind of just like really preparing you for working life rather than gaining a qualification.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
And I think I kind of recognised that, and that really appealed to me. I was, by the end of A levels, I was really done with exams and like working for a qualification. So that side of the time really appealed to me as well.
So our next question is, what do you think to the uni alternatives that are on offer? So I guess that's like diplomas and other more like internship based things.
Gap years and things like that as well.
I think they're brilliant. I absolutely think if anyone feels like uni's not for them, then there's literally no point doing it. I'd say I was maybe at the tail end of that kind of generational, like university is the next step for you. And quite a lot of my friends really started to challenge that and question that. So I'd say in the end, actually, it was quite a 50-50 split of my friends that went to uni, my friends that stayed and went into work or did gap years or like foundation kind of years or internships. And like 6-7 years down the line, none of us are any better or worse off than anyone else.
Yeah.
There literally is something for everyone, and university is not for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that because in our friendship group, I'm one of the only people who has gone to uni. Which is so interesting, and it's so different how it would have been. Like even only a few years ago, I think things have changed so recently.
Yeah, and also I think there's too much pressure now on, like, you have to make the right decision as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, you don't, and I'm still figuring stuff out now, and I'm still changing what I am maybe interested in. And like, if you decide not to go, but then 3 years later you want to go, you can. If you go and then decide you don't want to do it, like, you've still learned so much outside of that qualification by going to uni. And the biggest way I've learned that actually is my mum ended up going to university at the same time as me.
Really?
We both went at the same time.
Wow.
She studied in Leicester, de Montfort. And that's been just as good and valuable for her as it was for me, like 30 years later into her life.
That's really cool. I've not heard of many people who have done that.
Yeah.
I've seen, around uni myself, I've seen the odd person who's clearly like quite a lot older than everyone else, and I always find it really interesting. Like, I always think those people must have a really interesting story, really interesting, reason to go and study again. Or like suddenly come across a new fascination or later in life, or just really
absolutely
get into something. But yeah, I think that's the thing, is that there are so many different things on offer now aside from going to university, and university is not and does not have to be for everyone.
No.
John, you've just done an internship year, taken a gap year and done an internship in a church, and you're doing a second year in a similar thing, aren't you?
Yeah. So the second year is moving more into like what I want to do in uni, so music or like a media type thing, which is, I'm just basically preparing myself for that. But
so after but
I think there's a degree to which you can get carried away with it. Like I understand that like not uni's not for everyone, but I think if you're in a position like me where there's quite a valid option just to continue working in churches and keep doing that thing, it like there's a real possibility that you end up just doing that. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, but that it could become just you never get to where you want to go, or you never get into the things you want to do because you're sort of just continually in that loop of not like committing to going or leaving the comfy zone, I guess.
That's it. It's a comfort zone, isn't it? And especially within the church, which obviously we have so much love and respect for, but within the church, it's such a comfortable environment. And
we like what we know and what we're familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that it's really important to, like keep reflecting, like like every so often challenge yourself. Like, is this what I want to be doing? Am I headed in the right direction or not? And even for guys that have gone to uni, like maybe a year into that, you think like, you know what, like this really isn't working. Like I've learned some stuff this year, but I can't see that the next 2 years are going to take me where I need to be. It's like I went to uni with a guy who, at the end of first year, just realised like, you know what, this is not what I need to be doing at all. He left, he moved back to London and started his music career, and is now like, he's doing amazingly.
Really?
He's working with like really big names, like big labels.
Wow.
And if he'd have stayed for those 3 years, like that might never have happened.
Yeah. Can you put us in touch with him? But yeah, I've lost where we are on our plan again, John.
Oh my god, it's just a straight line downwards.
This is the bit of waffling that you cut. You do cut these bits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Good.
Listen
I
to the
often don't
episodes
listen.
and you'll know.
I actually need to listen to our own episodes back. Okay, what was the last thing that you said before we were going to cut here?
You put me off track.
Sorry. Oh yeah. So I wanted to say as well then. Like we've said and we've covered, that there's so many different options and choices and whatever, you know, in terms of going to uni or doing whatever. Would you do anything differently if you were to do it again?
Oh man, that's a really good question.
Thank you. I'll take credit for that.
I potentially would have just small things that, like, I wouldn't say I made any like wrong decisions, but just make better use of the resources that were around me at uni, and like make better use of my tutors, like ask them better questions. Like, they've got so much knowledge and experience, and sometimes you fall into just seeing them as like, oh, they just need to tell me this and tell me that, and then I'll do it.
Yeah.
But actually, like, for me, they were like practicing designers, and they've got all this knowledge and experience that I can soak up, but you don't, because you're a student and they're a tutor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that's it. Just understand what is there and like make better uses of things. But I don't feel like I've made any like big wrong decisions. And actually, even if I had, like, I've just got to accept that and go on. Like, there's no time for like regret or kind of wallowing in like self-pity at all.
Yeah, I take that as quite useful advice, actually, as somebody that's still at uni, because I can definitely like put that into my own kind of context, my own experience at uni. I've definitely not made the most of the resources. There's so much stuff at the uni, you know, and like you say, the people, the lecturers, the tutors, whatever, like, they're so like they know what they're on about.
Yeah, and you forget it because, like, high school, GCSEs, A levels, it's always just a given next step, and you just go through it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas all of a sudden, like, I've chosen to be here in a place which is like the best possible place for me to be for where I want to head, and you're still stuck in that mindset of like, this is just the next thing I need to do. Like, did GCSEs, I did my A levels, now I'm at uni. Whereas actually, no, like, you've chosen to go to this specific uni on this specific course, and there's these really good like resources here. There's these really good tutors here.
So we've discussed like this is sort of the age where you're like leaving school, becoming an adult, and obviously it has like a lot of different challenges that come with it. But as we've discussed briefly before, we've got this as Christians. We've got this like this community and this blessing of having the church around us. And you, along with a few other people we know, and Matt and Cam included, are part of our cell group, which you specifically help set up for people in our age range.
Yep.
So why don't you just tell us a bit about what it is and what the mission statement of the group is?
Yeah, so it's called Wildfire, and what it is, it's a missional shed community is what it is. But I loved in the episode of this that Matt was on, he described those communities as like small churches within the big church. So it's like we've got our big church family, but actually this is like our specific community within that. And yeah, like me and Matt just had a real heart for like our peers and acknowledging that we're in a really transitional life stage and people are making big decisions, or maybe worrying about decisions they've made or have got to make, or they're on their way out of one thing into another. And there were so many of those people who just really struggled to settle into communities of church, or struggled to find a place that kind of allowed for that like questioning and grappling and like becoming an adult, I guess.
Yeah.
Beyond the given like student ministry and youth ministry. So yeah, it's kind of like it's that age range, like 18s to 25, 30. And yeah, we meet and we eat together and we pray together and we read the Bible and we worship together, and it's a real like family thing. Like we support each other even outside of our meetings, and we pray for each other and we listen to God for each other, and we're all in it together basically.
Yeah, it's such a great group of people, and it's such a great idea in concept and in practice. Like it's really played out. I don't know how you would have imagined it going when you first started it up. Has it gone to plan? Has it gone how you would have imagined?
I don't think we imagined this far ahead.
Yeah.
Because it was so when it was starting, it felt so big and exciting. We were so stuck in the moment with each thing. It wasn't until a good few months in that we thought, oh, like maybe we should actually look ahead a bit. And we did like a bit of a vision day where we allowed people to like kind of have big dreams of like, what can we do? Like what different things should we do? What could we do? And just allowed God to really speak into who we were and where we were headed and why. But yeah, when we started, it was just we were seeing our peers needing community, and we put our heads together to figure out how that could happen.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Sweet.
And like you kind of briefly touched on the fact that there's kind of groups, like the church does a lot to take care of children and youth, up to the age of about 18.
Yeah.
And then after that, you become an adult, you're kind of expected to just integrate into the congregation. And without a group like you've set up, I think that can be a really challenging thing to, to suddenly be just out, just you're mixing in a congregation with people of all the way up to like 80, 90, 100, which is an amazing thing. It's part of the blessing of being like part of the community in the church. But I think I see it as also being quite, it can be quite disorientating as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everything up until that point it's there for you. There's resources for you. There's teaching for that specific life stage.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
it's
it.
It's like
You're ready.
It's like bowling with the rails up. Do you know what I mean? All the way through your childhood.
You've just thrown a ball and then the rails come down.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's it. When you become an adult, and it, like I say, like it's not a knock on the church at all. We're so blessed to have the community of the church,
But yeah, I think with something like you've created here in this group called Wildfire, you're helping so many people at the church that we're at Holy Trinity, who are in this age bracket that we talk about.
The rails slowly trail off.
The rails become unnecessary because Wildfire is there to take care of one another.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really great. And you have also recently been a part of the creation of another group. I don't really know how to sum it up. Do you want to tell us about it? It's called Makers Makers.
Yes, it's a very
Tell us all about
exciting
it.
new project between me and Dave Hendra, who you guys know, and John Stanbrook, who you guys know. And we're all creative types as well. John's a designer also. Dave's a musician. He used to be a photographer. He used to do design as well. And what we noticed was that creative people, but us as designers also, so often have like ideas. We're like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. I've got an idea for this. I've got an idea for that. But like, never follow up on anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of got together to start thinking like, what could we do? And yeah, so Makers Makers, it's basically a platform to explore creativity and art within the context of the church. So something I've been kind of thinking about today, which kind of frames it quite nicely, I guess, is that if you look at the history of art, it is absolutely steeped in religion. And you go into churches and there's like mega artworks and like stained glass windows, and like we've got like cathedrals and church buildings, and like art and the church have such a beautiful history together. But now when we look at art and the church, we see like messy church, or like children's finger paintings, or like, do you know what I mean? Like there's not such a like grand like art in the church anymore. Like it doesn't seem to exist so much anymore.
Yeah.
And it's definitely there, and there's so many amazing Christians who do amazing art and do incredible things.
Yeah.
And so quite a while ago, we did something called the Worship Experiment, which was a couple of city centre events that were just exploring worship outside of the context of like corporate sung worship. So the first event we put on was an art gallery in a pub, and the second event we put on was like a music open mic kind of night. And we just learned so much about, like, in our church specifically, but just generally, like, there's so many creative people, and we wanted to tap into that. Like, we wanted to bring them together and like start encouraging each other and pushing each other. And as me, John, and Dave kind of thought about it more and put our heads to it more, like we really started to realize like we're made in the image of God, who is a creator himself. So if we're made in his image, like it's natural for us to be a creative. So that's what we want to explore. That's what we want to like challenge people in.
I like that a lot. I wrote a song which will be coming out at some point in the future, which is all about that idea that, you know, since we're created by a creative God, we are bound to be, you know, creative.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's great. Actually, throughout I can't really remember the lyrics of the song that I've written, but I remember getting really interested in, you know, the idea that it's amazing that we're creative in terms of like making, you know, fine art and really beautiful paintings and things. But even as far as like architectural feats that are just, you know, like massive skyscrapers and things, that's in a different way. That's, you know, creative masterpiece.
Yeah, absolutely. And like anything can be creative. Like like in lockdown, I have really enjoyed cooking and like appreciating like each stage of the cooking process and understanding why things complement each other and what can go together and what can't. And like that's just as creative as my design work, which is just as creative as like your songwriting.
Yeah.
It's just such a natural part of us, and when we explore it, we feel so engaged and alive. It's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. What different types of creators have you got involved in the Makers project? Have you got kind of painters and?
Yeah, literally anyone. Like so there's a lot of people who we've been in touch with to say like we'd love to like get you involved, but essentially it's for anyone who is creative. But just to kind of to show the scope of it, we've got like us guys who are designers, and then like we've got people who do like spoken word kind of stuff, and they're like writers, and we've got some painters and some illustrators and like printmakers. Like there's nothing that I would say doesn't fall into it, really.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you are a great example of somebody in the church, living out your faith, who really identifies the strength and the value of community. That is something that really stands out since we've been talking about Wildfire and about Makers, and that's just such a valuable part of faith, of kind of our church community.
Yeah.
Having little, we have our big congregation where we all come together, but then we can split off into these little groups of kind of, what's the word? Where we kind of got things in common,
Yeah, like again, it's so natural for us to connect to people, and like again, like it's the image of God. Like God, it's like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and they're in community with each other, and they made us in relationship with them and with each other. And when we find things in common with each other, or when we intentionally build things in common with each other, it's amazing. And like anything we can do, it's so much better with other people involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's still amazing that we have people like you and Matt to carry it, though, because like without you or any of the small group leaders, it would fall apart.
Yeah, you got to have those like pioneers, haven't you?
Yeah, and people need reminding that like community is so valuable and important, and such an essential part of not just the Christian faith but life generally. Like we've got to have relationships. We've got to be with people. We've got to connect to people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's a really beautiful note to start wrapping up on, I think. John, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I think that's it.
Well, I'm about ready to wrap up. We had one last thing that we did have to bring up, though, before you go, Nick, and before our listeners go, assuming that there are some listeners at this point. We have our opinion of the week segment.
Okay.
I've got to squeeze in right at the end here.
Yeah.
Have you heard our opinion of the weeks before?
I think so. If they were on other episodes.
Yeah, it's just these really pressing issues with the world that we have. Really, really deep, really politically driven opinion.
Of course.
So mine. This is serious. You got to take it seriously. Mine is simply the opinion. I've brought it up with you before that if you're making a smoothie with fruit, it is all right to not cut the stalks or the green bits or whatever off. So if you're putting strawberries in, it's all right to leave the green bits on. I would even go as far as to say if you're using any fresh fruit, it's all right for it to be just a bit mushy and like moldy because you're blending it anyway.
I don't think mold.
I wouldn't say moldy because we really shouldn't have mold. But like fruit that's overripe or mushy because you're just going to blend it on more, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. Okay, I can accept your disapproval of the mouldy fruit. Just about. I did have because I made a smoothie earlier, and as I was like slightly blueberries, my sister pointed out, she was like, one of them's got like something fluffy on it, and I was like, we're just gonna blend it and drink it as quickly as we can. Pretend that it's not.
Wow.
I like how you think that like the quicker you drink it, the less the mold will grow as it's being blended.
Yeah, but that's
No.
digest it quicker.
That's not. Hang on, you make me look like a fool. That's not my logic. My logic quicker. It doesn't play on your mind so much, and then you're less likely to like vomit.
Like it's the psychological side of it, isn't it? I mean, mold's not really going to do that much
What,
damage,
like
is it?
ripping a plaster off?
Yeah, I suppose so. In fact, that's an interesting. I haven't had plaster since I was about like 10. You know.
Surely not.
No, honestly, I don't.
that for a second.
I don't. No, I promise. I don't use them. I avoid them like to the. To, as
I literally am like, when I'm cooking, I will rarely not cut my hands. My fingers are always in a state.
My response to that would probably be that you need to get better at handling knives.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. Well, on that note, let's wrap this one up, John.
Have a knife day. I hated that one myself, really.
I've got no clever response to that. No. I'm just. Oh man. Thank you to people that are listening right now. If you've not already followed the podcast on Spotify, please do. Or if you're listening on YouTube, give the channel a subscribe. That would help us out enormously, wouldn't it, John?
Or iTunes.
Oh yeah, if you're listening on Apple,
is actually subscribe. So it's subscribe on iTunes.
So if you're listening on, is it? I thought it was just Apple, not iTunes. Is it iTunes?
Well, it's a podcast, Apple Podcasts from iTunes, but it's Apple still.
Whatever it is. If you're listening on there, then you're gonna know what it is anyway. Yeah, if you're on there and you feel like giving it a subscribe, then please do. We would appreciate that massively, wouldn't we, John?
We would.
Wouldn't we, Nick?
We would, yes.
Yes, that's the one. I didn't even give him a script for that. He just knew what to say.
The difficult improv there. It's really thrown under the bus with a big line to.
Yeah. I'm just going to wrap this up before we say anything else that's a little bit completely stupid. I've been Elliot and he's been John.
I've been John and he's been Elliot.
And thank you for listening to the Still More Show.
Say bye, Nick.
Bye, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being on, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, you can fade it out somewhere here, John.
Sure.
Bye.